Welcome to our channel. The roots of the wealth gap are deep and twisted, can be traced back to the brutal horrors of enslavement. Even after the Civil War, oppressive policies like the Black Codes and Jim Crow laws enforced a cruel status quo of racial segregation and economic oppression. And although programs like the New Deal and GI Bill brought prosperity to many Americans, they were often used as tools to further exclude and disenfranchise Black Americans from benefits such as home loans and education. The chains of slavery may be gone, but their echoes still reverberate through discriminatory practices. The wounds of this systemic injustice continue to fester, leaving a stark divide between those who have inherited generational wealth and those who have been systematically denied it. The legacy of intergenerational wealth transfer weighs heavily on the unequal distribution of riches in society. For African American families, the lack of generational wealth has been a perpetual obstacle, creating a cycle of cumulative disadvantage that continues to widen the gap between the haves and have-nots. The passing down of inheritance is a crucial element in amassing wealth, offering an avenue for financial stability, access to education and investments. Yet, for marginalized communities, it remains an unattainable dream, further deepening the chasm of inequality and injustice. These figures highlight the significant disparities in wealth distribution across racial and ethnic groups. Asian households stood at the top with a median net worth of $320,900. This was significantly higher than white households, whose median net worth was $250,400. On the other hand, Hispanic households had a much lower median net worth of $48,700, and Black households were even further behind at $27,100. These stark discrepancies in wealth highlight the systemic inequalities that exist in our society. The legacy of African American enslaved labor is deeply intertwined with the history of several major agricultural products, such as cotton, sugar, rice, coffee, and tobacco. Many companies that profited from these industries in the past are still in operation today. Here are some examples of companies or their modern equivalents whose predecessors relied heavily on enslaved African American labor. Cotton Cargill, Inc., family-owned, worth $177 billion. While Cargill itself was founded after the abolition of slavery, it is deeply involved in the global cotton trade, a market built on the legacy of enslaved labor. The cotton industry in the U.S. relied heavily on the labor of enslaved African Americans, particularly in the southern states. Sugar Domino Sugar, part of ASR Group, privately held billion-dollar company Domino Sugar traces its origins back to the 19th century, and its predecessors were involved in the sugar industry, which relied heavily on enslaved labor, especially in the Caribbean and the southern United States. The legacy of sugar production is steeped in the exploitation of enslaved Africans. Rice Carolina Rice, part of Riviana Foods, Inc. Rice cultivation in the U.S. South, particularly in the Carolinas and Georgia, relied extensively on the labor of enslaved Africans, who brought with them crucial agricultural knowledge from West Africa. Companies that emerged from this industry, like those producing Carolina rice, are part of this legacy. Coffee Folgers. Coffee, part of J.M. Smucker Company. Although coffee cultivation in the United States itself was limited, the global coffee trade has historically involved the exploitation of African labor, including enslaved people in various coffee-producing regions. Folgers, as a long-standing brand, is part of an industry with deep connections to these exploitative practices. Tobacco Reynolds American, part of British American Tobacco. Reynolds American is one of the largest tobacco companies in the United States, net worth $8 billion. The tobacco industry was one of the first major agricultural sectors in the U.S. to rely on enslaved African labor, particularly in Virginia and the Carolinas. The legacy of this labor is foundational to the industry's history. The agricultural industries that relied on enslaved African American labor played a crucial role in the economic development of the United States. These industries not only built fortunes for individual plantation owners, but also contributed to the growth of related businesses and the broader economy. Potential solutions: reparations. Addressing the historical injustices that have contributed to the wealth gap through financial reparations and policy reforms. Economic opportunities. Implementing policies that promote fair wages, reduce employment discrimination, and support minority-owned businesses. Thanks for watching.